Halloween ends, but does it really? Does anything ever really end? Probably not. We're talking about what is supposedly the last movie in the whole Halloween franchise. What does not end, though, is our newfound love of Riverside. If you're seeing us in glorious 1080p, it's thanks to Riverside, our new recording platform. You can do meetings. You can do videos. You can do podcast audio. You can do whatever you want. You can just call your mom and say hi or not on Riverside. We'll have a link below. Go check them out. They're easy and fun to use. I kind of love them. Alonso, tell us about Halloween Ends.
Okay, so I think my favorite description of this was Bibbs described it as a backdoor pilot in his review for The Wrap, because this feels like they're setting up a new character and like they would be a new franchise, except not. I don't know. We meet Corey. Rhymes with Laurie, but it's Corey. In 2019, he babysits a kid on Halloween night. An accident happens, the kid dies, and the town of Haddonfield, who are revealed to be a lot of a-holes, like hound this poor guy and never let him forget it, even though it was not his fault. Sound familiar? This movie is kind of setting up the idea that really the villain was Haddonfield all along. But Corey is, on the one hand, you know, being like mistreated and pushed to the brink and possibly into actually becoming an evil murderer by the town. But on the other hand, he is falling in love with Allison, played by Andi Matichak, the granddaughter and surviving family member of Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, who is writing a book and maybe kind of trying to be more chill and you know, not live in fear and not live in a cage and, you know, re-emerge with the world. But every time she does re-emerge with the world is shitty to Laurie Strode, because Haddonfield, like I said, is a town of awful people who never let anything go. Enter Michael Myers, who frankly should be a metaphor at this point, but no, he's still here. And this time, maybe we think they promise Halloween ends.
Yeah. So let's not spoil. We won't spoil. There's enough to talk about that's wrong with this movie without spoiling it.
Sure.
So you're in good hands with us here. Yeah, this movie is a total mess. The first hour of it is edited and paced so erratically. It's so boring. It's so like all over the place and not thrilling and not scary.
Not scary.
I can see a whole long setup for what ends up happening at the end in the third act, right? But make that stuff compelling. Make us wonder what's happening. Make us care about these characters or fear these characters or whatever it is. Make us feel something. It is so empty and so just almost plotless, almost like defiantly plotless. It is like The Shape. It's just out there.
It's the shape of a movie. David Gordon Green, I defy anyone to love every movie he's ever made. Like, I don't believe there are people out there who loved, you know, All the Pretty Girls, but also loved, you know, The Sitter. You know, he runs very hot and cold. He's all over the place.
He's very eclectic.
Yes. And I think he's made a lot of really great movies. I'm a big fan of the one with Al Pacino with a weird name that I can never remember, Morgan Crunk or something. But I have not been a fan of his Halloween trilogy. And this one is as bad as the first two in terms of like, what are we doing here? Why are we bothering?
Right.
What is the point of this? It's like, yes, it's great to see Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode again. But while watching this movie, I was thinking, did we benefit that much as a civilization, as a cinema, that we didn't just leave Halloween alone? Like, could just leave the John Carpenter original, which is a nearly perfect movie. Right. Just let it be and let it have a legacy. I don't know that any of the sequels have really brought that much to the table apart from the Silver Shamrock jingle, you know?
First of all, just an editor's note here, Manglehorn is the word you're looking for.
Thank you.
We would have accepted Manglehorn. David Gordon Green, who I am a fan of as a guy, as a filmmaker, I appreciate that he's not making the same movie over and over again.
Absolutely.
He's got great range. I mean, he's got like George Washington and Pineapple Express in him.
Exactly.
But his Halloween movies keep getting worse. And he writes them with Danny McBride, who is his longtime friend. They went to college together with Jody Hill and all those guys.
Yeah, 4 people credited on this screenplay. Did you notice?
But yeah, that's true. There are 2 other people here, but it's always been him and Danny McBride. The first one in 2018, which we talked about here, was a reboot. And then I totally forgot that Halloween Kills even existed. until I went back and rewatched our review of it. It was only a year ago.
Yeah.
And that wasted Jamie Lee Curtis by sticking her in a hospital bed the entire time. Like, why? Here, she's pretty much wasted the first hour or so, just like going to the grocery store, just hanging out in her house, writing and narrating what sounds like a terrible memoir.
Yes.
Her book sounds awful.
She's like Meg Ryan and You've Got Mail, typing away.
Right.
You know?
I couldn't help but wonder, what if I killed Michael Myers the first time? So yeah, no, it's really bad. And, there's so much I want to say, but I can't. But I'll just say that the characters we're supposed to care about in some way. I just never did. I really didn't. And then what's bizarre to me is this contradiction at play from what happened in 2021's Halloween Kills until now, because the whole point of that is like the town and the mob rising up and taking back their town and saying, we're not going to let Michael Myers terrorize us anymore. Now that same kind of mob mentality has morphed into bullying, which is bad. So I don't understand that through line in terms of a trilogy from him from an ideological perspective.
Until what happens in this movie where it's like, where even are we now? You know, I don't.
Yeah.
Like,
it changes again. Yes.
Yes. What are we supposed to think about Haddonfield? You know, which is clearly what this movie is after. Like, I'm not bringing this up as an abstraction.
Right.
Haddonfield is the major presence in this movie, and the film can't make up its mind about whether it's redeemable or whether it should just be burned to the ground, you know? And yeah, you're right. Along the way to get to all of these mixed messages, you have these characters who I didn't really care about. And I can't believe we're spending this much time on a brand new character in the, 13th, 16th. I have not found any of these latter day Halloweens interesting. Really, I'm serious. After one, I think it all kind of falls apart. But I find this to be, if this is your big, we're wrapping it all up and we're coming to some kind of conclusion, which, yeah, pull the other one. We know that these franchises like this never die. Of course, it will. Within 3 years, we'll be back here talking about a new Halloween.
Right. And the absolute last image in this movie, which I won't say what it is, but it suggests that like maybe we're not done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
there's one quick interesting idea that they sort of like dip their toe into and then leave again. So Laurie goes to the grocery store and a woman confronts her in the parking lot as she's leaving.
Yes.
and complains about the injuries that her elderly mother suffered in the previous movie because she had to bring Michael Myers back. Why couldn't you just leave him alone? Why do you have to have all this collateral damage because of your egotistical need for revenge? Like, that's an interesting idea. Because Laurie Strode's always our hero, right? Ultimate final girl. We're on her side. We want her to win and kick some ass. But this presents a much larger repercussion as to what that damage does. And like, that's an interesting idea to like make us question Laurie Strode, and then they just abandon it.
Yeah. Like there's one passing reference that somebody says, yeah, she teased a guy with mental illness and then he came and killed a bunch of people. It's like, okay, that's an urban legend-y version of what happened, but we could dig into that and we could talk about how the David Gordon Green version of Laurie Strode maybe is partially at fault for the stuff that happens. But yeah, you're right. It's mentioned and then walked away from. Anyway,
I am going to say like a 3. There were a couple of cool kills, but I was never scared or enthralled at all.
Yeah, I'm like a 4. Okay. You know, I think that it raises some ideas that it abandons quickly, goes down some rabbit holes that don't really mean anything, and is just, generally a waste of time.
Don't see it on Peacock or in a theater.